What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Codename Scream. I am that horror guy, and if you have not done so already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications for all things horror. Welcome to another episode of SLASHETHON. Today is our final first round. I'm real excited we got to this point and want to thank each and every one of you for your participation with the voting. You guys are the ones that really made this thing what it was. Put me in different positions where I was like, I don't know even how to tackle this. So it's been a lot of fun for me in that sense, and I just want to thank everyone for the participation and keeping that momentum going. Today I decided to throw things on its head a little bit, as I had announced last week. A few weeks ago I did throw a poll up on Instagram and Facebook asking which was your favorite final girl out of the four that I had listed. By your votes, the top two were Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott. So I decided for our final first round, it's all about the final girls. So we have Laurie and Sidney facing off against each other today. So before I go any further with today's episode, I do have a couple of announcements as far as winners from previous episodes based off of your voting. For Ghostface and Jason, we are going to go ahead and advance Ghostface to round 3 to truly face off against Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As far as the Michael Myers and Richard Ramirez episode was concerned, no question of a doubt, I saw this coming from day one. Michael Myers has the landslide victory there and will be the one to move on. So, with that being said, today, whomever you advanced as your top final girl will be facing off against Michael. And then I'm curious to see how that will work out, because now you've got the final girl up against Michael. Are we going to move Michael on to the next round, or are we going to possibly move a final girl on? That's what's going to be a lot of fun here, and I'm really curious to see what you guys decide here when that is all said and done. So, as far as today's episode, we're not going to get too far into it. All of you know the stories, you've seen the movies. There's not really a lot of back history also with the characters to an extent. For this, we're just going to give a quick, let you guys know what's going on here, for those of you that may or may not actually know the stories. So, for Laurie Strode, because of how Halloween and those films work out, I did decide to use the current canon that we are going through, which is the 1978 original and the 2018 direct sequel. And reason being, we're in a year where the next one comes out. That's their current series, and that's the way we're going to go with as far as Laurie's concerned. Versus Sidney, she's been straightforward. She's been in 1 through 4. There was no retcons. There was nothing going on. So that was pretty easy in that sense. So, starting off with Laurie. Laurie did join us in 1978 in John Carpenter's Halloween, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis. I absolutely loved that film. As you guys may or may not know, I did just cover that film last week. With that being said, that is my top horror film of all time. If you haven't checked that out, please make sure to go back and check it out. So she ends up surviving the first film, obviously, and 2018 Halloween moves us 40 years after the original, and versus how the other canons were, Laurie was Michael's sister. And it was all about he's got to kill his sister. For a while there was that weird Kurt Thorne thing going on that no one likes. She dies in an off-screen car accident and becomes the dean of a prestigious school in California. There was a lot going on there. Thing I appreciated about the 2018 film was this was my brother coming after me. It was a random act of violence, and it is 40 years after the incident, and getting to see Laurie trying to deal with life and move on from the trauma of seeing multiple of her friends murdered and then almost being murdered in process. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic take, and let's be real, Laurie was just awesome and really took Michael for a run for his money at the end of the day. So, if you haven't watched any of these Halloween films, please make sure to go back and check them out. And we're going to move on to Sidney, who joined us in 1996 in Wes Craven's Scream. That was a real game changer as far as the slasher movements were concerned. I did touch base on that on the episode I did about Scream. So make sure to go check that one out as well. At this point, if you haven't, if you're just joining us, you got a little bit of back work to do, and come join us here. So Sidney ends up surviving the first film, moving on to the second film, and the third film, and the fourth. We got a fifth coming here eventually, and I'm curious to see where that's going exactly. But the whole thing with Sidney is whomever is donning the Ghostface mask is somebody that pretty much has a beef with her. In the first film, it was her boyfriend and his best friend, and her boyfriend's father had an affair with Sidney's mother, caused the divorce between his parents. So, some, misplaced revenge, if you would. Moved on to the second film, it ends up being his mother wearing the mask, and it's, oh, you killed my son. Then we moved to the third film, and it was the removed brother situation, and then we moved to the fourth film where it was her cousin. So it's just, everyone's got a problem with Sidney at the end of the day, but Sidney just keeps coming and just makes her way through it, and it's awesome. If you haven't seen any of those Scream movies, I would highly recommend to go ahead and check them out. And if you have, you know what I'm talking about. Sidney's awesome. And I feel like no matter what, when it came to this voting thing, I always felt like it was always going to end up being Sidney and Laurie at the end of the day. My heart does reside with Nancy Thompson from Nightmare, and it was sad to not be able to bring her into this. But when it comes to these two, they're very similar in ways, and I felt this was a really fair matchup at the end of the day. So we're here to go ahead and just move on to the points. So how did I figure that out exactly? You can't really use the same formula we've used to this point with SLASHETHON, where you have your 4 that follow us and then the 2 show specifics. It's not about kills. It's not about the brutality. It's not about the body count. We even threw away the survivor rule a little bit here. Things were a lot different. So we had a new set of rules for the Final Girl specifically. That's what's going to make things interesting when we have to put one up against a serial killer, such as Michael Myers in the next episode. So we have an even 6 on either side. So going forward, I'm going to go ahead and immediately take a point away from Sidney. And this is based off of technique, specifically. Sidney was really good about quick wit and quick survival tactics. Just a real kind of clutch in the moment survivor, if you would. Laurie had those aspects as well, but the thing that I really appreciated about Laurie specifically was the fact that in the 2018 film, she spent the 40 years post her incident just really kind of preparing herself for every possible scenario you could. She had a shooting range in her backyard. More like acres of land. She lived on this like remote little ranch, if you would, that she had a shooting range, multiple survival tactics going on here. She was really hardened, ready to take on anything. She's damn good with a gun too. She shows that in the scene where she's blasting apart the dummy and whatnot. And we're going to move on from there because there's another set of points that kind of follow in suit with that. Don't want to get too far ahead. So next set of points I'm going to take away is based off of films, screen time, if you would, that they've survived to this point. And that is where I'm going to keep the point with Sidney and take one away from Laurie. Yes, technically speaking, if I were to take from other canons, Laurie does have a little bit more on screen time, but in one of the runs of canon with Halloween, she does technically die. And I'm really liking the 2018 aspect with her being survival. Laurie just, can't take anything. So that's why we went with that. So kind of an unfair way of pointing out here, but unfortunately, that's what we had to do there. Moving forward, and like I said, we were going to kind of Easter egg this, and that's why I had to stop while I was ahead in point 1. We're taking another point away from Sidney. And this is because of creativity as far as survival was concerned. The cool thing I did appreciate about Sid is in Scream 4, she did use the defibrillator pads to shock and help with her kill against her cousin in the hospital scene. That was pretty cool. I like that. That was a little different. Was not expecting that necessarily. However, Laurie's got an entire trap house in this Halloween film that she's built that you don't even know it's a trap house until the end when Michael's in the basement. They've got the barricades for him right there, and the whole house is triggered to set ablaze. I thought that was awesome, really creative. Was not expecting that going into it the first time, and I'm still a huge fan of how that worked out. So I would definitely say the creativity goes with Laurie in that sense. Well done. You spent 40 years creating one hell of a house. I next will be taking away a point, unfortunately, from Laurie, though. And this is due in part to her killer is still alive. Michael is still alive at the end of the new Halloween. Obviously, we're getting another sequel here in October. Whereas Sidney's been on the follow through. And we know my mantra with these other episodes is all about the follow through. Sidney has survived and killed each one of the people that have been in the Ghostface mask to this point. So that was something that I felt was a fair thing to have to point out, where she actually has gone through and made it through to this point, whereas, Laurie's still facing off multiple times against Michael. Next point I'm going to take away is based on the most epic quote from their films. Each one of them had a set of quotes from their respective films that were pretty awesome. Sidney was a close to winning this section, in my opinion, because in Scream 4, when she's like, you don't F with the original, I thought that was a really cool thing, and it is part of the whole Scream series where they're kind of just like attacking tropes and whatnot. Really loved that. However, when Laurie says Happy Halloween, Michael, in the new one, it was just chilling. It was awesome. It was, for me, that was the moment where it's like, yes, Laurie, awesome. And so I'm going to give that one to her. It's a simple line. It was effective, but it was great nonetheless. So our final point here is going to be based off of which killer would be the more difficult one to survive, in my opinion. And with that being said, I'm definitely going to take away the point away from Sidney. Every iteration of Ghostface, I felt like, was just easier and easier for her to an extent. Easier to outwit, easier to kill. Versus Michael is an unstoppable force. And definitely takes Laurie for a run for her money. That dude gets shot, stabbed, everything you can throw at him, and he's still going. Where, you got Ghostface tripping over things left and right, gets hit really easily, knocked down, like, he's like Chumbawamba in that sense. He gets up again, but definitely I would say Michael's definitely the more difficult one to have to survive, and I'm curious to see how things are going to move forward with her new film. But that's how we decided the points. Had to throw things off a little bit here. But as we guys know, it's up to you to decide who actually moves forward in this thing. So let's go ahead, sound off in the comments below. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can send me a message on Twitter. You can email me. Multiple avenues to get on that soapbox as we do, and tell me which final girl you think could outwit the other one, and inevitably take on Michael Myers. So next week, whomever you vote for your final girl will take on Michael Myers for round 2. And I know things have been a little bit confusing in that sense, where we do have a round 3 existing currently, and we've got a round 2 still kind of going on. So I apologize for the confusion there for anyone, but it's all going to make sense in the end. But mark your calendars. March 26th will be our final Slashathon episode. Why am I telling you to mark your calendars? Well, it's a Friday night. We're throwing things off balance once again, and we're going live on YouTube for the first time on this channel. We're going to do the points and everything right there with you guys. Have you guys in the comments joining in. I've got guests lined up for it. This thing is going to be a great way to send off this series. Whomever wins Slashathon, because we don't know where we're at with that yet. Whomever wins this thing, I will do coverage on whatever films they were in. If it's one of our slashers, you're going to get the entire series. If it's our final girl, you will get the films that they have been in, including the ones that I completely eliminated if it is to be, say Laurie. But, so next week, we will have our final girl against Michael. And then we will be at round 3, we'll be flush, and we can get this thing finished off in no time. So, with that being said, scare you later, YouTube.